Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with my honest impressions on Borderlands 3 after 10 hours with the game. I started in the evening. As a lot of you guys know, I did not get my code really early at all for Borderlands 3. I played all night into the wee hours of the morning, slept a little bit, got up again, and continued playing in the morning because I may be slightly addicted to this game, and I'm really stoked to start talking about the full product here and making videos for you guys because we've been covering this on the channel for about a year and a half now, and I've been waiting for Borderlands 3 like many others for a long while, despite enjoying Battleborn, so the wait didn't feel as long. That in-between game from Gearbox wasn't all that bad, but anyway, it's good to finally have Borderlands 3 in our hands, and it's even better to finally be playing this game in a not press environment. As a lot of you know, I've gone to 2 preview events for Borderlands 3. I already played about 7 hours combined with the title. I was very much ready to just have it in my hands, in my own setup, the comfort of my own home, kicking my feet up, not obsessing over my notebook. So I'm excited right now to just talk about the game and how I've been enjoying it. Keep in mind as I go through this, because I'm going to be noting some technical issues, that I am playing on a base PS4. That's where the squad is at. That's where I got to play co-op. So just note, that is why I made that decision. Anyway, I think the best place to get started with all of this is absolutely the shooting, because that's what you see first, and that's really what Borderlands is all about. So how do the guns play? Is it still like I mentioned back in May where I thought that the game played fantastic? Yes, that is still very much the case. Borderlands 3 really plays like a dream when you compare it to earlier entries in the series. Sometimes certain makes from certain guns don't really recoil, but that's usually pretty typical of them, like the Hyperion SMGs are always going to become more accurate as you continue to fire them. But I knew this game played really well when it came to gunplay when I picked up a Torg assault rifle, which I notoriously do not like these weapons. A little assault rifle shooting out 3 grenades at a time or shooting out rockets, it always felt very weird to me. And I have to say, I am actually very excited to report I enjoyed Torg weapons, which it's just a personal preference. Maybe someone out there really does like them. But when I liked how that played, I truly knew right there and then, okay, the gunplay in this game is having a superb upgrade, clearly, if I'm buying into even those weapons. And yes, you are going to be cycling out weapons a lot more. I did mention in my preview that I didn't swap out weapons as much as I had expected. Part of that may have been because in the press event they did provide us with very good weapons, but when it came to actually having the full game in my hands, I did stick with weapons for a little bit longer than usual, usually a 3 to 5 level threshold, but after that I was ready to move on, which is a decent amount of time, but it's definitely more of a cycle than I had initially reported. So that's a little bit of a tweak there that I had noted, and I'm happy about that because there's so many guns to experiment and mess around with, and honestly it felt like every single gun had potential depending on the hands it landed in, because they all play differently. Sometimes you can have a sniper that charges up and shoots a different element, whether it be shock or radiation, and it can also sort of serve as a shotgun if you charge it up all the way and use it at point blank range. So I really like that versatility that the weapons provided, because I could still scope in and use it from a distance and do damage over time if I was able to implement the shock effect, which that type of stuff I really get a kick out of, because then it depends on who you're playing as, how you're building, which goes into the skill trees in this game, which at least on the surface looking in, man, they look very deep. Now I am playing as Flak the Beastmaster. I've promised this since he was initially revealed. This is the person I wanted to play as. I don't believe that's a very original pick. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter polls mention how they are going to play as Flak as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if many people are sharing my excitement in him. I'm currently building in the Hunter tree, so I'm building stacks with additional damage whenever I kill someone, and also I'm building a buff that's applied anytime I fight specific enemy types, like I get bonus crit damage if I fight humans, for example. So Flak is really turning into the Hunter himself. Originally I was going to go the Beastmaster route, as a lot of you know, but I thought that this would be fun to experiment with because I don't like going according to plan sometimes. I want to live life on the edge. So that's what I decided to do, and I've been thoroughly enjoying building out Flak. I've been messing around with weapons right now. I feel that shotguns and snipers are best with his build since I'm focusing mainly on crit hits, but for now, that's what I'm going with, and I've really enjoyed it. Now, this is also my first time playing co-op with Borderlands 3. As a lot of you know, I made a video questioning if solo play was a viable route in Borderlands 3, and I'll let you guys know that a majority of my playthrough last night, outside of 1 hour, was in solo play, which is a first for me. It just shows honestly, how as you get older, you know, your friend circle starts to dwindle a little bit, because I would imagine if I were in high school playing Borderlands 3, it would strictly be a co-op marathon experience. But here I am playing the majority of one of my most anticipated games of the year by myself, even though it's a primarily co-op experience. But friends have obligations, so they had about an hour of co-op time with me, and I did note a couple of things when I was playing it that changed. Number one is there was a little bit of latency when driving. Now, it wasn't enough to really be frustrating or anything, but the turns didn't feel as immediate. There was this weird feeling to it all. Led to a couple of crashes, a little bit of going off track. Not the worst thing in the world by any means. Maybe it was a host-based thing, I'm unsure. But still, something that I felt was worth reporting. And one thing I did note during my co-op playthrough, and it still happened in my single-player playthrough, is that the skills menu would not load up all the way. Sometimes the HUD would not come up, and it would sort of lock the game up. This may be because of an issue that all of us who followed Fallout 76 may be familiar with, where the game's just streaming so much data, and it's trying to, for example, when you load in your inventory, it's loading in all the stats for all the guns all at once. I think that can slow the game down a little bit. And if you remember in Fallout 76, sometimes you go to your stash and wouldn't load images of the weapon, or wouldn't load all the weapons or items that were in your stash right away. It would actually take some time. I got a little bit of that in Borderlands 3. It's not nearly as bad, but it still is there. It's something to be aware of. And naturally, since I'm playing on PS4, sometimes when a cutscene starts, you'll see the textures haven't loaded in yet. It's not nearly as bad as prior entries in Borderlands when you're playing on consoles. And I'm talking back in the 360 PS3 days when you were playing the original Borderlands 2 or the original Borderlands game. Those titles had really bad texture pop-in that would occur all the time. Obviously, with the Handsome Collection, that was no longer an issue for Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel, and with Game of the Year Edition when I played it on PC, that had no problems at all. But on Borderlands 3, when it comes to the console version, I did notice a bit of texture pop-in. Nothing bad when you were actually playing the game. It was usually when a cutscene was loading, but still, once again, a little tech thing that has to be noted. Now, obviously, as a lot of you guys can tell, not really much negative stuff to walk away from here when it comes to the tech side of things. There's little kinks here and there, but ultimately, this feels like more Borderlands 2. And that's why I think the quality of life enhancements stick out so much, because when you already have such a good formula, how do you evolve that further? And so they've just made a number of things more rewarding or more convenient for the player. I mentioned in previews, and I'll mention it again, swapping quests with the D-pad is something that I can't believe was never in the series before. There's also things like completing bonus objectives is far, far, far more worth it in this game. I know sometimes they did it in Borderlands 2, but in this game, almost, I'd say 8 to 9 times out of 10, when I completed a bonus objective for my missions, I would receive a unique weapon that did something different from anything else in the game. I thought that was a very compelling reason to go through it. I think they very much understand their players. There's such a constant revolving door of weapons that unique stand out more. Even if it's just for 15 minutes to tinker around with and it doesn't really sync with you, it's still a rewarding experience and makes that quest all the more better and memorable. Other quality of life enhancements come through the way of, we'll say, a 3D map. When you open up the map, you can rotate it, get a look of where everything is, and it's actually displayed in a 3D fashion on the map, so navigation never was an issue for me, which I gotta say, I really appreciate them going out of their way to make the map this way, because there is a lot of traversal in Borderlands. Sometimes, especially in the original Borderlands 1, not Game of the Year Edition, you would get lost a lot of the times tracking down your waypoints. That is not the case in Borderlands 3. Furthermore, they added random social updates. Like I said, I never played online with this game. I did strictly solo play, and I've still been enjoying that all the way. But I did learn that these random social reminders are going to pop up telling you when a friend has done something in a game. Even if you're not with them and they're on your friends list, they're going to tell you something they completed or progress on one of their challenges. I kind of like this. It felt like there was a little interconnection between me and other players, and considering Borderlands 3 is such a good game, it doesn't seem like a waste of a social feature that probably won't be relevant for a while, since so many people are going to continue to play this game. So I was really happy to see something like that. Now let's talk about the story just a little bit. Obviously, I won't get into spoiler territory, but all I can say right now when it comes to the Calypso twins, and I'm not comparing them to Handsome Jack. Handsome Jack is strong for his own reasons, but he stands apart on his own. I'm just looking at them as the Calypso twins, and do I like them or do I not? And I gotta say, so far, when it comes to the story in Borderlands 3, it hasn't grabbed me yet. Does that mean it's bad? No. Is it subject to change? Absolutely. I'm not really through the game at all yet. We don't know what plot twists are waiting for us, what big moments in the story are waiting for us. That was one of the main things that I felt brought Borderlands 2 from a great game to an excellent game, so I am hoping to see the same thing with Borderlands 3, although when it comes to so many of the gameplay, mechanics, and improvements, it's already pretty much an excellent game. It plays so well and the environments are constantly varied. It's beautiful to look at. So I really appreciate so much of what's already there. It's just that story would be what carries it over the top. And so far after 10 hours, I can't say I'm particularly grabbed by it. As for the humor in the game, I would define it as humorous. I wouldn't use the word funny because I think funny more so describes like I'm constantly laughing, where humorous kind of gives me that uplifting feeling inside of me, and I maybe put a little smirk on my face. I think I actually laughed out loud one time so far in my 10 hours. It's definitely not hilarious by any stretch, like we'll say a South Park game, but humorous is a good way to describe it. It's got that quirk to Borderlands. Some characters just try to be all crazy, zany, and over the top, and sometimes it doesn't land, but as I mentioned earlier, it's just more of what you expect from Borderlands, which, as you've seen online, some reviewers didn't like that, which I don't know what they really expected, especially with all the preview coverage that was going around. It was very much known, and especially even Gearbox said like, hey, this is more of Borderlands 2, and I think people were reluctant to trust that because of a lot of the controversies that went on, and obviously we want to get the whole product in our hand, but as I played it, it was, yeah, more Borderlands, so there will be a sense of familiarity. I saw a lot of people coming into my stream the other night when I was playing going, is this Borderlands 2? You know, they were obviously wisecracking all the time, but when your art style is cel-shaded, I don't really think you can make it look better per se. You can make it look sharper, so you'll notice differences graphically in the amount of objects on screen, particle effects, lighting changes. That's where a lot of the game looks better, so to speak, but artistically speaking, it does look very much the same. And it does have some of the same loops: complete tons of quests, get tons of rewards, cycle out weapons, level up your character, continue progression in that manner. But the loop is so fantastic, they don't have to change it. So if you liked Borderlands 2 a lot, you're going to love Borderlands 3. But if you're looking for something that's going to push you over the edge when you haven't liked Borderlands for a while, I don't know if 3 is going to do the trick for you. Now, I have seen a couple of people who have contacted me saying, hey, I wasn't into Borderlands, saw your stream, I want to get it. Should I get the cheapest version of Borderlands? Should I get maybe the deluxe edition? So some people have been pushed over the top with this game. I just think you have to make sure you do your research, because there's nothing really hiding underneath the surface with Borderlands 3 that's going to shock you so far from what I've experienced and go, wow, this is a game that has something that previous Borderlands games don't have, and that makes it so much better. I'd say the only thing that could push you over the top with Borderlands 3 and convince you to be interested in it at the very least is knowing that the weapon variety is very much legitimate. There are a ton of different weapons you're going to be cycling out. The game plays excellent. There is a lot of enemy variety. The characters that you play as are extremely varied. I did test each of them a little bit throughout my preview events, and obviously I've spent the most time with Flak, who is fantastic. He plays like a dream. The quality of life enhancements that are there, like I mentioned earlier, it's a great co-op game. All in all, I've been really enjoying Borderlands 3. I do have one gripe, something that I did mention in my brutally honest opinion video just about a month ago during my last preview of Borderlands 3. I did note that I had some issues with the boss because of its attacks and how it knocks me down. I have to reiterate what I mentioned in that video. I don't care if I get stomped by a boss. A bunch of get-gooders came in my comments and said how bad I was at the game, and it's like, I don't care if I die a lot. It's okay. I'm not gonna get my feelings hurt. But when I die to some BS, that's when I'm going to take notes. But I will take complete exception. I was an idiot in that video, and I did not realize I had a corrosive weapon out against a corrosive enemy. But I wasn't complaining about the damage I was doing, but more so what he did to me to knock me down. And the same case in the terms of being knocked down by something that's entirely confusing is actually during the Kilovolt boss fight, where he does this one ground attack, which coats the entire floor in electricity. The entire floor. And I had nowhere to go. And I could have maybe tried to stand on one of the ammo chests. I don't think it would have served as a surface for me to actually hide on. And if it did, I would have been attacked by Kilovolt and knocked off of it. One thing I did note going through this boss fight frame by frame to make sure I didn't personally miss anything is that when they were warning you, hey, there's going to be a shock attack that's going to cover the whole floor, the entrance area was not marked as that one place that would be hit by said attack. So I believe I was supposed to run there. So I thought I had originally made the mistake. As I continued to go through frame by frame, when I got downed, I noted that that section of the stage also got covered by this shock attack. So this actually may be a glitch of some kind. I think that area is supposed to be the safe location where you run to when he does his attack and then you hop back into the boss fight. That is just my speculation. I think it's the only thing that makes sense, considering that we can see in this picture once again, the yellow covers the entire circle of the arena, but the entrance area is not covered. But when the shock attack goes off, everything gets hit. So it's actually completely 100% unavoidable, unless maybe you stand on an ammo chest. I don't know if that would count and protect you from anything, but still, this is something that I think has been a recurring theme throughout the last 2 times I played Borderlands 3, and something maybe that Gearbox should take note of. I like the idea of a boss being challenging, kicking my butt a couple of times, learning their mechanics. I think that's great because that's what was happening initially. I was having a lot of fun. Then he did that attack, and I was like, well, hold on. It's alright beforehand when you killed me twice, and it was because I was learning you, I was trying to figure you out. I love a good challenge. But when he did that floor attack, that was a little ridiculous. But yeah, just my overall impressions on Borderlands 3. Really good game, really enjoying it. Just like what I'm doing with Greedfall, these are my impressions in the first 10 hours, and then I'll meet up with you guys again for a review. You'll probably see more Borderlands 3 on the channel in the coming week as I continue to pump out content. I have a couple of ideas, one discussion video in mind, so we'll get to that very soon. Other than that though, I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Do fire away, ladies and gentlemen. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.